Hey, good morning. You are live on Intex News Radio, reality radio, where everybody can be a star. I am one of the co-hosts of Straight Up the Middle. And joining me to assist in this endeavor on this beautiful Saturday morning is my co-host, none other than the world famous and renowned Professor Tony Seabrook. Good morning, Professor. How are you doing today?
Man, I love that intro. That's a lot to live up to, but I'm doing good. I'm doing well.
Yeah, man, you already did that and much more, man. It was good to have you with us this morning. And as always, it's like one of my most exciting times of the day, of the week, really, because it's kind of, I've said this so many times, it's kind of like therapy. You know, we get to dive ourselves into this deep pool of discussion and thought and cleanse ourselves of all that we've been infected with over the week and get ready to start all over again next week. So I really do look forward to our time together this morning, Professor. And I want to take a moment, you know, it's Women's History Month.
Yeah.
I never really caught that Women's History Month always followed Black History Month because, you know, in the Black history, there are so many women that oftentimes go unrecognized. And so to have a Women's History Month here, I was thinking about who did I want to celebrate? You know, we've been doing some stuff on my Facebook page, and I was saying that I wanted to point out for this morning, for Women's History, I wanted to challenge everybody to look no further than right there in your own home at your wives and mothers. I think as men sometimes, we get so consumed with some of the things that the world demands of us, we overlook the greatness that is right in front of us. And no, my wife is not standing next to me with a gun to my head, threatening me. I just think that women have done some incredible things over the years that should be recognized. And I'd like to point out my mom. She brought us to Tampa for better education and lives. And so far, it's turned out okay. So I wanted to wish all the women a happy Women's History Month this morning, Professor.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, so then I can't say, I'd have to say my mom as well. Well, I certainly agree. I was trying to hold back the joke. Well, that's according to who you're talking to, because really, you know, in this gender neutral world, how dare you single out your mother? And then what's the definition of a mother? But I'm not going to go there and just minimize what you've done. So I certainly agree, but my conservative roots just keeps me from having that thought. Yes.
Listen, I never want us to get confused with the kooks in the corner. And in all groups, there's a kook in the corner. And let me frame it. Let me put a context for you, Professor. At every family reunion, there's a weird uncle off somewhere chasing butterflies or eating grasshoppers or talking to himself. Or there's some crazy person in the family. Right. They are family. And everybody, they're welcome. They're going to get to be there. Somebody's going to take them a plate. And everybody's going to say, well, that's just, that's Uncle Rufus. Y'all know how he is. But he doesn't get put out the family because he is a little weird. That's like our political kooks in the corner.
Okay.
They're kooks. So they get to be there. So those kooks you hear about that believe that the world should be gender neutral and there should be no women or men, don't confuse those with the majority. They just off in a corner somewhere.
And that is comforting. While that is comforting, you guys need to make sure Uncle Tim or whoever is just, muted. Put him in the closet. Make sure he can't talk because there are a lot of kooks on your side of the house, man. I just hear too much.
Hey, listen, at least we keep our kooks from the Capitol, all right?
Touche.
With that being said, man, listen, we got stuff moving in the right direction, looks like. Virus is stabilizing, vaccines are going out. But what got me, I'm surprised to see a couple of Republican states, I think Texas, Mississippi, and some more by now, drop their mask mandates. I thought that was quite interesting. What do you think? We opening up too early? Or what do you think about these mask mandates being dropped at this point in time?
Well, I think it's part of the political agenda. I don't think anything done now, and just been my stance ever since the elections, that more than I thought was political. And there are some things that you would think would be bipartisan and just heartfelt common sense. But Texas coming forward and dropping it, and a big to do about them doing it. First of all, I was thinking, who else had it? I know Florida wasn't a state that had a mandate. But the big to do about it, and I'm hearing people saying that, oh, Governor Abbott is pretty much doesn't care. No, someone is saying that he's doing that to kill all Black people. I've just seen so many different comments on social media. And what I think he's trying to do is just try to drive towards some sense of normalcy. If those numbers are true, that COVID numbers are coming down, we know that now 20% of the population is vaccinated. Depending on what party you're in.
Yeah, I thought it was 10%. I thought we only had 10% vaccinated.
Well, there was 14% that I thought that received I thought it was 14% that received the vaccinations by now. And then there was already 6% that either already had it and already, whatever the numbers are. Let's even say it's 10%. I don't think it's 10 because they said that we're now approaching what one would call the herd immunity, which means enough people been vaccinated that the virus is not spreading through the population as it once was. Now, again, it depends on what science you're listening to, and that's just become politicized. Listen to the science, but who knows what that is. But Texas lifting the mandate, I think it's good, but I just think it's about headlines now. What do Republicans need to do to try to look like they are actually doing something in this Democratic administration? And that's pretty much how I see it.
That is interesting. I didn't think that they want to look like they're being active from a political standpoint. I hope. Well, now I thought it was probably mostly economically driven. That if you drop the mandate, people will feel comfortable doing more. Now, and I think that the difference is between a mask mandate and wearing a mask. Those are different things. The mask mandate is kind of where the government says, if you don't wear the mask, you can't do whatever it is they say goes along with not wearing the mask, or that if you're on government property of some sort, you got to wear a mask, because the mask mandate has nothing to do with private property. It has nothing to do with Costco, and then has nothing to do with, Disney World or any place you might go, the grocery store that's privately owned. They make their own rules, like you make in your own household. So my thought was, wow, if if there's a mask mandate dropped from the government, will the private sector follow suit? That's really my concern. The other thing is the mask mandate, I think, was never really enforced. So is it really doing something to drop the mask?
It's all mental. It's all mental. So you made the perfect analogy, the mask mandate and wearing a mask. Do I feel safer when I walk, even in the 7-Eleven, if the guy in front of me does not have a mask on, if the person behind the counter doesn't have a mask on? So, I mean, it's a mental thing. And whoever, and I don't know, because I don't think it's purely political, along political lines, who drove this, but the frenzy of behind the mask, when we clearly know the same doctors and physicians were saying masks didn't work a year ago this time. They did it. They did a good job because they just scared the Jeezy out of the public into thinking if you didn't have a mask on, you were killing your next man. You don't care about, your fellow citizen, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's all mental. I don't know. And certainly I don't believe in jinxing. So the statement I'm about to make is I just had a conversation with my brother, and to be an ex-Marine, this guy, I don't know. He looks at me differently because I'm conservative. And I'm like, dude, you're in the Marines. How are you just liberal thinking? But anyway, he lives in California, so maybe that solves the problem or answers the question. But he was saying, did you get vaccinated? I go, no, not yet. I'm not rushing to get until they make it mandatory. Oh, no. So he tells me about everybody that he knows that thought like I did, and they got sick, and, oh, this guy was in shape and he got sick. Where I'm going with this is I've been in the classroom. I never stopped teaching face-to-face. Now, we've reduced the hours, so there's never more than 12 students in the class. So I make the 13th person in the class, and we've had those spaces, and we wear masks. But, at some point, sometimes when my glasses fall, you have to bring it down to type on the keyboard or whatever it is, and students have to do the same thing. So it's never been 100%. We know that it's not 100% protection. Since I've been in the classroom the whole time, I'm having a hard time buying, that the mask mandate had to be actually mandated. I think they could have approached this differently. Let business owners run. If there's a sign on my door to come in this business, you need to wear a mask. Now you can't have a police officer at every business, but at least it should have been approached that way. But to come down so heavy-handed, and now we're just so fragmented on how we think and what we think about masks. So there's a group, I see people running all the time without masks. And I have a mask on, and what my mindset is. And I'm like, man, is that guy crazy? And then I have to catch myself. Well, that's he's the one that'll get sick, not me. But it depends on where you align mentally, what your thought processes are. Most people tell me Republicans, they don't wear masks. Democrats wear masks. And I'm like, how are you telling me that? But it's true, along the lines. Who's going to run into a store without a mask on? Sometimes, it is that cool looking riot, Capitol rioting looking type of person. It is that person that runs past me. They don't care. But, I don't know. I know I'm being tangential here, but this whole mask thing has just been crazy. I wish it's over, but part of me thinks I'm going to always have my mask in my pocket because I just don't know.
I thought that the politicization of the mask is kind of diminishing. That's one. I won't do any business anywhere where the employees don't wear masks because I don't expect them to run everybody out the store that walks in without a mask. Mm-hmm. It's proven that's way too confrontational, and professional. I think there have been a few people that have gotten in alternate case, people gotten killed over mask situations. So I don't expect employees, throwing somebody out because they won't wear a mask. I understand that. I get them trying to keeping signage up, but if I go in a place or anywhere and I don't see the employees wearing masks, I just turn around and walk out. I don't, no big deal. I'm just not going to put myself in that environment. Now, that's economic. And so to a company or business, the economics of mask wearing are pretty cut and dry. My office, we are still closed to outsiders. And we're working on the process of getting people inside the office vaccinated. And if you're at your desk, you don't have to wear a mask. But if you move around, you get up to go out your office, and everybody has their own office. You have to put on a mask. But it feels like to me the political dynamic of the mask, not mask wearing seems to be fading. And I don't want to say I guess it's this way, with the fading of Donald Trump. That seems less polarizing and political. Just like I said, I don't even say that there was a time I might say to the people in the business, I want to see a manager. Why are you guys wearing masks? And now I just walk out the door and go to the next business that does whatever they do. And
hey, listen, I have to be honest. I did call Subway's hotline or whatever to report a story. Then this was early on, but what bothered me was not only was her mask below her nose, she was sniffling. It looked like she had been crying. But I'm like, okay, but you can't fix my sub like this. This is the issue that I have. You can't fix mine. And so anyway.
No.
So I'm the same person. Now let me talk about that point you made. I'm not gonna let you get away with that.
What?
Donald Trump, the Democrats beat Donald Trump up about not being a good example, walked around without that mask. And there was a school of thought out there that said it was all about politics. As soon after the election, this whole thing is going to go away. So a couple of things that we've already talked about. One, the numbers are being stabilized. That number is coming down. We're talking about herd immunity, and we're talking about COVID stabilizing. That's real convenient because it's only been, a month or two after the actual, less than 2 months after the election. And what people thought when they were beating up Donald Trump about this mask and should we have a mask mandate and blah, 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 he's not setting the right example for the country. Less than 2 months after the election, mask mandates going away, herd immunity being talked about. It seems like that school of thought was right. It was all political anyway. So Donald Trump was actually right.
Talk about letting me get away with stuff. I'm not letting you get away with that. Let me back up. All right, so we're nowhere near herd immunity. We're not even close. If you use the actual reported numbers. I think what you're saying is there's suspicion that the reported numbers are about somewhere around 25% of the real numbers. And if you extrapolate that, that may get you to what you think is the herd immunity piece. I think we're still a long way away from getting to the herd immunity just yet. If just accepting the numbers that are presented now, as it relates to Donald Trump, here's his problem was not only did he not wear a mask, he told me, it doesn't really matter if you wear a mask, don't wear a mask. I'm not getting involved. Mask, I don't see myself doing it. And the posture of our administration completely different. Now, I think there are moments where I've seen Joe Biden not wear a mask or move his mask or touch his mask or some of that kind of stuff. And I understand, people are human. You're not going to be on it 100%. But the general example of being health responsible to other people, I think still is what we're talking about. The example piece was, and I think we gotten that earlier. A lot more lives could have been saved than had not. It just feels like much more rational, responsible decisions being made. I disagree with dropping the mask mandates. I think we have to get these numbers much, much lower, much, much more under control, because if the variants take off, we may run into a variant that the vaccine is not effective against. And now you're back to square one, trying to develop a whole new vaccine for that variant. But if we get this virus down under control, we may be able to avoid that. So, all right. So let's move on, because the real meat and potatoes on the table today in America really is this COVID relief bill. This great Save America effort to restore security, get kids back in school, bridge the economic divide of people.
Oh God, stop me with those Democrat.
Let me ask you this though. It's clear the Democrats had the numbers. It's kind of like with is it who's the most recent Supreme Court nominee that they put up that Bush that Trump put up? Not Gorsuch.
ACB, Amy Coney Barrett.
Right. They had the numbers. So anything the Democrats did, it was for naught, because she was going to be approved, because the Republicans going to be hypocrites and even at the last minute approve someone. Let's leave that where it is. I think the Republicans have made a bad gamble not getting on board with some of this relief. I think Americans are going to be upset about this. What are your thoughts about the fact that there's no bipartisan support so far for this bill?
Well, I saw the C-SPAN. I saw the interview with a group of the Republicans, as you call them, Flimsy Graham. I think Blunt, whatever her name, from Iowa, and Thomas Thune or Thune. They gave some interesting numbers. I don't think the American people would be too upset, because their issue was some of the bloat that was in the bill. And then they wanted to bring down, instead of $400 a month, bring it down to an extra $300 a month, because over the long term of the bill, that would actually save money. So that's actually going back or leaning back on their fiscal responsibility. But here are the numbers. There was $20 million for some preservation of native language, something to do with Indians. There was $135 million for the National Museum of Arts. Then it was $135 million for something to do with humanitarian or something. But then it was $200 million for some museum library project. So when you look at that, it's $500 million, right? That's $500 million.
Correct.
If the intent is to get the American people back to work and get things going, then why not entertain objections or amendments that are fiscally based? Because they weren't objecting to anything else. They wanted, I think they pulled the minimum wage out, right? Didn't they pull that
Yes.
option out? Okay.
Right.
So there's issue with that.
They qualify.
Right. Because what was that?
The parliamentarian said it didn't qualify under the rules that they were following to get it passed.
Right. And I think Joe Manchin was the one that was really kind of stuck on that part of it. But he also was willing to work with Republicans on some of these issues that they raised. But I hear that Biden made a call to him and pretty much told him, hey, look, we're not having any working with Republicans. So, we need that solid 50 because, we're so tight here. We need all 50 votes so the VP can do the tiebreaker. So I don't think they're going to necessarily take a black eye for it as long as they can always show like what I saw. I mean, they showed it on numbers. They show what they've been in step. And bipartisan effort with this bill up until the Democrats decided to, we want everything we want, even things that you point out that are kind of bloated. We still want that in the bill. So as long as they can show the reasons why they did it, it doesn't really matter because, numbers and perceptions on their side. But I think that's how it will be turning. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I think that's how it will be turning pretty soon with Joe Biden's, I think, ineffectiveness and just how people see him, view him as a leader, strong leader.
All right. Okay. Real quick, for those people who tuned in this morning, you're listening to Intex News Radio, reality radio, where everybody can be a star. Just want to give you quickly the directions on how you could participate in the show. I know the professor and I sound wonderful, lucid, and very thoughtful, but we would love to hear your comments as well. And here's how you can participate. You want text 25324. 25324. And then in the subject area, what the subject of the text is going to be SUTM. That will connect you with Straight Up the Middle. And we will bring you in and you can comment on the show. Again, text 253424, 25324. Put in the subject area SUTM. And that will connect you with give instruction for how you can log into our show. And you can participate in this. Now, okay, Professor, a couple of things about that. I'm just trying to figure out a Republican next year on the campaign trail. And the person walks up and says, listen, when I was unemployed, out of work, at my minimum wage job, you didn't vote for raising the minimum wage or getting me my unemployment benefits extended so my family could survive. Why should I still vote for you? That's going to be a tough answer. And that's what I think the Democrats are boxing in Republicans. I will be shocked if Republicans don't join this bill at the end. You know why? Because I think, and here's what's going to be crazy about this, they're going to expose the Republicans in the House by doing it.
You think?
Because, yes, I guarantee. I'm thinking at least 5 to 7 Republicans. I don't know how if you say, well, I didn't want the museum to get any money, or I didn't want somebody. Who cares about them? What about me? What about me? And what about my needs? That's what I think is going to be hard for Republicans to explain. And
well, I'll tell you, this is how they answer that. See, when in 2020, when the pandemic was at its highest, people thought the same thing. Remember this election, they were the Senate was supposed to gain seats. Matter of fact, the House and the Senate were supposed to gain seats. And even in that poor environment, as far as the economy is being suppressed, they were trying to figure out ways how to boost the economy. Republicans picked up the most seats. And I'm not a historian, but I believe the fact, and I believe that this is the fact that the House has the slimmest majority they've had since 1800s. But here's the thing with that. In a bad situation, at the height of the pandemic, the Republicans did well and picked up seats in the House where they were supposed to lose seats. They not only held their seats, they picked up seats. So in 2022, we know that the numbers are going to be better as far as the vaccine and the pandemic. So I think this is a conversation that's going to kind of lose its steam over time because there are going to be some other things that come up before we get to 2022. Let's not talk about the HR1 and the Equality Act. All those things are what people think about. And let's also forget, a constituent may ask a representative, why didn't you do this, that, or the other? Well, let's not forget who actually moves that. The small businesses in general. Yeah, that person asked a question, but these policies have to benefit businesses so that they can hire. And that whole $15 an hour minimum thing, while we know that's really directed at a certain sector because Joe Biden can push it federally, we know that these things, they grab hold in a state capacity because of the federal law. Businesses can't all do that. So there's going to be some real conversation because once people realize that the $15 an hour does not help the small person, most of these people, businesses are going to have to start selecting the They're going to get the best they can. If I have to pay somebody $15 an hour, then I'm going to have to let so-and-so go. I need the best person with the most education, even for some of those low-paying jobs, or not low-paying jobs, some of those jobs that don't require degrees. I might get somebody a degree and not give this person a job. That's what raising that height, making it at $15, that's what it does to small businesses. They now have to make those hard decisions. So that's a good point. Somebody may have to answer that question. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think they're going to lose votes because of that.
Absolutely will. It happened before. And I think that every time we try to raise minimum wage, Republicans use the scare tactics of, people are going to lose jobs and all that. It's stair-stepped. It's incremental over time. And the last time it was done, I think it's $7, wherever it is now, that didn't happen. That did not happen. The economy was able to absorb it in a progression as it went along. But I think there's something, I don't want to drift off into this argument right now. I think there's something fundamentally wrong, Professor, with the idea I can have a full-time job at minimum wage and be below the poverty line. I think something's wrong in our structure of our society if we're agreeable to that being how we look at workers. And if the Republicans want to be the party of workers, you got to have a counter argument. I get you saying, oh, they won't remember that. But if I'm some person sitting there, you didn't want to give me more money. See, here's the problem you get is the Democrats join the Republicans. See, when the Republicans had power, the Democrats could be bipartisan and join with you for the American people, for what was right and what was good. But the hatred and the desire to oppose Democrats is so profound, Republicans can't find it in themselves, even when it's clear there's something on the table that benefits everybody.
Well, I'm old enough to remember when the Democrats. I'm old enough to remember when the Democrats did that to Trump. They were held. They're not going to do anything that's going to possibly make his Congress or his people in power. They're not going to join on board to do a lot of things.
Watch me now. You are absolutely right. The goal was to keep the damage that Trump could do to a minimum. But that did not extend to the American people. And that's where they got I think they've trapped the Republicans on this one. I think it's genius. I mean, I just don't know how you go out and say I'm for the workers. I didn't vote to give you a stimulus package. I didn't vote to raise your wages. I didn't vote to extend your unemployment benefits. What the hell did you do then?
Well, here's the thing. That's a good wish, but we know that didn't happen in this last election. Let's not forget, we picked up seats. And state houses, we didn't do bad either. So this whole thing.
But think about this. But you could run on saying, we're trying to help you. We're trying to get stuff. We've passed 2 other bills. So you could say, you could go out, you didn't have to face this argument. I'm just thinking it's an interesting trap that I think Republicans are gonna have to try and navigate their way around. I mean, it's almost like I went to Washington and gave them a strategy, and they've now ensnared Republicans in this thing. I think the way out, though, is to have Republicans, some of them join in and vote for this thing. We'll see how that turns out. But we're going to do this real, Professor. We got to take a break, and we'll come back on the other side and pick up and talk about, one, where's Kamala? I mean, where is she?
Yeah.
And what's happening with the economy? Let's take a quick break. We're going to pay some bills. You're listening to In-Text News Radio, reality radio where everybody can be a star. We'll be right back.
Slap talk, trap talk, just talk with Madam CJ. Right here on In Touch Radio every Thursday at 7 p.m.
Talk to me, baby.
Trap talk, y'all, on In Touch Radio.
By now, we're all aware of the dangers of COVID-19. Like others with existing health issues, cancer patients are at a high risk due to their compromised condition. If you are newly diagnosed with cancer, your care likely can't wait. Moffitt Cancer Center is the best place for your cancer concerns and to provide guidance to help you plan your next steps. We're here for you. Call 1-888-456-2839 or go to moffitt.org/here for you.
back live on Infection News Radio, reality radio, where everybody can be a star. Again, my name is Clint in Paris. I'm one of the co-hosts of Straight Up the Middle, and my other co-host is Professor Tony Seabrook. Okay, just to give you a recap, the goal of Straight Up the Middle is to expose people to thoughts and ideas that they may not have otherwise heard from both sides of the aisle. I give you the very, very extremist liberal view that I possibly can come up with. And then the professor counters with something conservative thought-wise that he would like to put on the table. And in the end, we hopefully give you some information that you can use in what it is that you're trying to achieve in your life. So, Professor, I'm going to deviate. I know we agreed on the topics for today, but I got to go back to something that we've not talked about. We primed it last week, and that is CPAC.
Right.
That's CPAC. Because when we had our show last week, we were leading into Donald Trump's speech. We did not know what the speech was and what he would say, but we knew he'd be giving the speech.
Right.
And I think it's appropriate, with the limited Republican news we have, to kind of go back and touch on that a little bit. I'd love to have you share your thoughts for what you heard about from the speech, or your thoughts about the speech and the CPAC tenor in general.
Yeah, I would give him a B on the speech. He talked about he kept repeating himself on certain points. Obviously, those were the points that he, pretty much made a part of his campaign and when he became president. So I think he did a little too much repeating there, but the tone, I think he said it for what bothers Democrats, for the America First people who still believe in that America First type of branding. So, you still have those people, the Josh Hawleys, the Matt Gaetz here in Florida, obviously our Governor Ron DeSantis. So I think what came out of that was reaffirming who was in his corner. Because not only did he, give the attaboys and, hey, this guy has my back, this guy had my back. He had a list of people that he wants to see gone. And at the top of that list is Liz Cheney. And I thought but it's only Donald Trump that would do it. I mean, he gave names. So-and-so needs to be gone, so-and-so needs to be gone. And then he saved Liz Cheney for last, and she needs to be primary and, pretty much replaced. And he used that term replace. I mean, he was not shy in what he felt about, and he didn't have to be, right? He's out. I was tickled that he kept teasing those Democrats and once again going at the media, pointing them out. You see those people in the back, they're going to turn the cameras off when we start talking about this, that, and the other. When he starts saying, hey, I think I'll beat them a third time, which obviously brought that crowd to their feet. But let's talk about the number of views. I don't know this, and I didn't spend any time trying to verify it, but I heard he had something like 300 million views on that, much more than Biden would have. And the comparison is always going to be there. So he kept his agenda going, pointing out some things that Joe Biden is failing at now. He's talking about what Democrats don't want to talk about. They didn't want to talk about it then when Trump was dealing with the border. What's going on at the border? People are talking about these undocumented workers or what he's doing at the border. They're lining up, trying to come in. Even the press secretary said it's not the government's fault to COVID test these undocumented, these immigrants, these illegal immigrants. So they're letting them in, and they hadn't come in yet, but that's how they're framing it. This is what Trump talked about, just listing those things, and something that I think is going to be more of a talking point than what we just talked about. Yeah, that worker who may be unemployed with their minimum wage job. But when we get to talking about those things that hit you in your house like anything else, Trump talked about the women's sports and what these bills do, how the Democrats have positioned themselves against the people that they say they care about the most, women and children. Well, they really never talk about children, but he talked about that as well. So again, all those talking points that evangelical right likes to hear, all the talking points that the America First people like to hear. So he did his job. and he showed that he still commands an audience, and they're not just, paper votes. These are people who actually will show up for them. We have a caller coming in. I'm gonna bring the caller in the waiting room.
Okay.
Let's see who's there. We may have lost. Oh, there he is. Matter of fact, he's in now. He's coming on. So while he's bringing up his mic, so I think Trump did his job. I mean, he said, "Hey, look, I'm in the background," and Ron DeSantis took off from that and pretty much said what he's going to do. Because the reason why we're not hearing much from the Republicans and certainly those Trumpers is because of the censoring, the taking down posts, you violated the community guidelines, so that they are censoring that conservative voice at every turn that they can without somehow being legally challenged.
So is the caller, are you there?
He's not on his mic yet. Let's see.
So we can't, if you're there, we can't hear you. I see your icon popped up, but I can't hear you. So check your mic. Okay, well, we getting the caller in. Check, unmute your mic, caller. Appreciate you joining. Caller, what's your name and where you calling from?
Your audio is really bad.
I'm calling. Unfortunately, your audio is not coming through. You're coming through very chopped. Maybe you're in a remote location where we lost the caller. See if you can, get to a better connection, caller, and try to give us a call back.
He's in the waiting. I put him in the waiting room, so
okay,
I'll message him there.
Okay, great. So as I'm thinking about Donald Trump, so that B grade is a B grade against Donald Trump.
A B grade for the content. Now I give him an A for morale. I mean, but for content, I give him a B.
I tell you, just his presence I thought was a major step backwards. Unless for the party, because you think about it, here's a guy, he's lost the popular vote twice, and he lost the electoral vote convincingly, and he's very polarizing to the folks who voted against him. So he would have to do something pretty, I think, magnanimous to rise to that level. He also pushes back the development of new Republican leadership 4 to 8 years. So those other leaders, Nikki Haley and other folks, or Ted Cruz, or whoever be coming to the forefront as leaders of the party, they're kind of being pushed back even further in their development and emergence on the stage. I was surprised to see DeSantis emerge as a popular figure. And while I don't like him, and I thought he won the election in Florida kind of in a questionable way, I think he's governed half decently, particularly as it relates to the virus. And I don't know how that translates onto a national scale, but I think that's built into the things he's doing to draw people into Florida. Say, look, while the rest of the country is in its turmoil, Florida's moving ahead. What are your thoughts about that whole idea about Trump setting the Republican Party and its growth and development back, though?
I couldn't disagree more. What do you mean setting them back? Nikki Haley's been in government long enough. She knows who she is. People know who Nikki Haley is. Ted Cruz has certainly been in government long enough. We know so we can have strong leadership. Just because you have a strong leader does not mean that no one else can develop. That he can facilitate that.
Okay, let me ask you this. What Republican would dare run against Donald Trump?
I think Nikki Haley would run against Donald Trump. She's already come out and positioned herself as, well, this was a mistake to back Trump. If she didn't run against Trump, then it's all words. She's not establishment like a Mitch McConnell, but she's traditional. Here's the thing. You guys just hate that Donald Trump poses a problem. You frame it as if it's going to be policy issues. Donald Trump poses a problem because he actually has voters that will stand up, and guess what? Voters that actually fight and not fight tearing up someone's business and that kind of stuff. They'll actually take it to the people's house. Again, not condoning the lives that were lost, but if you're going to fight your government because you think there's a problem, history is written about stuff like that. This is not the first time the Capitol had been attacked. So
whoa. Yeah, but that was by the British.
But right. That what I'm saying is when you have an issue with the issue that the Democrats have is you have people who are so passionate.
Let's do this. I think we lose something when you're telling me what the Democrats think. Just tell me what the Republicans think. Okay. And I'll tell you what the Democrats think.
All right. Okay, good.
The Republicans think
that there's still very much an America First party within the Republican Party. But we know the establishment still are at the helm. Mitch McConnell is still up there. But Mitch, the same position Nancy Pelosi was in with the AOCs and when that crew came in, Mitch has to now deal with the Gates and the Josh Hawleys. And Ted Cruz is just that he has the presence and the respect and the knowledge to give these new voices, these American voices, and even Marjorie Greene. I'm not saying anything about her politics because I don't know her that way, but she is still someone, just by putting that sign up across two genders, she is definitely someone that would just turn over the apple cart and just, hey, look, I'm just here to disrupt things. I think the Republican Party knows that they can't do anything without that America First group. They won't win anything without that Donald Trump segment. No matter how you guys want to frame it, him being polarizing, his bad tweets, blah, blah, blah. Donald Trump, I said it before he left, Donald Trump is going to be the only president that took his base with him. And Mitch and the establishment Republicans knows that they have to figure out a way to bring them on board.
Okay, so I agree with all of that. I actually agree that the base went with him. And that's why so many Republicans have to compromise, I think, their value structure to align themselves with him because he demands. And more recently, I think Nikki Haley is back on the Donald Trump trail of his greatness and wonderfulness. And even after he wouldn't let her come down and wouldn't speak to her at Mar-a-Lago, she's back on it because of that reason. But I think that somehow is not good because I think it still fractured the Republican Party. I got a real belief that he probably could win the nomination.
You should have that belief.
He'll win it. I just think that I just don't know who would beat if he ran. I can't see somebody else really beating him. First, you can't get any donations. You can't get any contributions. So you really can't mount a race. And by him simply saying he might run in 2024, he shut down almost everybody's presidential exploratory. They're done. They can't.
He needs a running mate. There's always a number 2 position.
Yeah, even Pence. I think almost got Pence killed.
No, nobody's talking about Pence. Pence is done. Done.
Now, why is Pence done? Tell me.
Because Pence is the nice guy. Don't get me wrong. I love Pence because everything that we got as far as executive actions for the faith community, evangelicals, that was Pence. That had little to do with Trump. That was Pence. But Pence is not the personality that will, and people see Pence as weak. Donald Trump did a well enough job in expecting Pence to do something to help his efforts. There is a sincere, as much as big tech and the Democrats want to censor our thought and change our thought about a rigged election, there is a sincere thought that it's still there. The reason why you don't hear it because social media is taking it down. You can't post that anymore. So it's not that it's gone away. So that's why Ron DeSantis set it up that way in Florida. He's enacting the most aggressive action against big tech and anybody who censors individuals. So that's why I think there's always going to be a number 2 position. So there, Kevin McCarthy, whoever it is,
I think DeSantis translates well. His problem is regional. He's from Florida, and now Trump's from Florida. I think he translates well. He's generational. He's a new generation, so that's an exciting thing to a lot of people. Like he's very pragmatic.
I think that's a losing ticket, though. He's not on that stage long. He's not been in that, or he's not been governor. He's only been governor one term. He didn't win by condensing numbers either, so he needs to stay put and grow his numbers and his base a little more before he gets there. I think Trump would do well to pull somebody that's already in Washington.
Really? Well, that's going to be difficult because then you get claimed with being an establishment person. Or some of these people have gone, I think they went too far in their effusive praise and promotion of Donald Trump. But that was in my thoughts about CPAC, and I thought it would not be responsible of us if we didn't talk about it, since I don't know what else you guys have coming up to get some attention. So I figured, why not now? We'll say
you don't know? Well, I mentioned it too. I mentioned already too now. This HR 1 bill that's supposed to be good, that bakes in ballot harvesting. And so how does it do that? It stops you from purging voter rolls when you know that there are people that should be on that roll. It keeps paper ballots in place.
But let me say this though. It doesn't bother you that the majority of all those things disproportionately affects African Americans and minorities?
That would bother me that would bother me if someone showed me the numbers and I could trust the data source. Remember, you talk to someone who, when I have things that I print off that I can somehow look and see where stuff come from. I'm very rarely I can't dispute you. Some things I can't dispute, I don't know. But if you show me that this is 20% of African Americans are always purged, I got a problem with that. And especially you can't show me that there's a comparable percentage to any other race, then that's a legitimate problem. But this whole talking point, just like people say, this whole transgender thing is something that Republicans throw out. Well, this whole thing about purging Black people, you know my issue with that. My issues always wag when Democrats show up and they got to help Black people because that's the only demographic that can't access stuff online. We can't figure out what the coronavirus is now, according to Joe Biden. We can't even go online these days. I need some special help. It gets my goat. So if you can show me numbers, and anybody listening can always show me numbers because I believe in that.
Because see, these things only come up when Republicans don't get the outcome they want. And there's a long history of this. There's a long history of voter suppression and efforts that look on the surface that make them try to look neutral. Mm-hmm. They try to make them look neutral, but the ultimate effect, and for example, you take just a simple thing they did in Florida with the felons' restoration of rights. The citizens voted to restore felons' rights.
Right.
But the legislature said, okay, we have a disproportionate number of African Americans who are felons. Mm-hmm. And if we restore their rights, that's a large number of people coming into the voting community. Let's
but what
add
do they
something
think?
to that.
Because one would think if these people get their rights restored, they come into the population, to the pool of voters, and everybody has their, hey, look, this is what I want to do. But that's not the school of thought. Guess where those felons go? Guess what everybody believes that they're going to go? Into the Democrat Party. So just like undocumented workers, when you say, hey, look, the Republicans want to keep you over there and send you back to where you can be killed, where's that vote going to go? So the Democrats always overplay their hand. It's like we can't figure out, you go for felons, you go for undocumented workers, because even according to your words, the Black vote has always been, as you call it, unstable.
Those are a little bit, a couple of crumbs. So I crumbed you into the cage because Democrats fight for people who need to be protected and need their rights. That's why we're always seem to be in a place where you have disadvantaged people. I'm gonna leave that where it is. Real quick, we're about almost out of time. Mm-hmm. I got to get some discussion in about this. Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
I'm she's got a really low profile. Would you agree with that?
I would agree, but let me start off saying that is probably the biggest. That's the, as it called, the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Women's History Month. We have the VP, first Black female VP. So that's in itself a celebration. Her role is ceremonial anyway. So the VP role is basically ceremonial. You know, you preside over certain things in the Senate. You're the tie-breaking vote, but that's all it is. Joe Biden may have a want to push the narrative that it's my presidency, because a lot of people on my side of the house, you know, think that he's just, you know, paying off, you know, his constituencies or his, you know, his lobbyists with these some of these executive actions. So I think her role is just what it is. I'm not surprised. I guess I'd be surprised given all the so-called hype behind Kamala Harris and what she would bring. But the VP role has always been pretty much a quiet.
You know, I just thought I expected she would be more of an advocate, an envoy for him. I know she goes down to the Senate and casts votes, but I think for some reason they don't think she's that great at, you know, whipping votes maybe. But I'm just surprised. You just
they would be correct.
I'm just surprised she's not, you know, more visible. And like you said, I think it may be strategic in that you don't want her to get out too far in front of Biden before he's got himself well. Because he can be a withering presence. That's the way to put it.
I like
Trump,
that.
Unlike Trump, he sucks up all the room and all the oxygen in the room, no matter if he's not even in the room.
Exactly.
I don't think Joe Biden has that kind of presence. That's not how he leads. He leads from a much more less grandiose posture. You know, he just does it. He makes one or two comments and he does what he needs to do. Is this going to be a long-time problem though when they need her to go throw her weight around, that she has no kind of leverage at that point in time?
Well, I didn't take that bait that you set up, and I think you set it up with, oh, is Kamala Harris invisible? Yeah. I'm not taking that because when they don't want a black woman out there. No, I'm not going there. That's an obvious one. Here's the thing that Joe Biden.
You get better.
Here's the thing with Joe Biden. Joe Biden looks frail. Joe Biden tries to put this hard, you know, like I'm the guy. I made this determination. But when you hear things about, should I take questions? Do you guys want me to take questions? When you hear that in a feed and Joe Biden does not take questions, somebody's telling Joe what to do. How many times have you heard Donald Trump ask, should I take this question? He's going to answer it wrong every time, but he's going to take the question. Nobody's going to tell Joe. I mean, nobody's going to tell Donald Trump what to do. Very much to a fault. But I think the obvious thing is that Kamala Harris is just waiting her time out because Joe doesn't look like, he looks out of it a lot of times. You can't even blame it on COVID.
You keep saying this, you know, okay, granted, he may have stumbled a word here or there, but I thought
Wait a minute, you're minimizing. May have. Every outing Joe stumbles a word. What are you talking about? May have.
But look, we didn't say that when Donald Trump repeatedly made up words like confetti and stuff. I mean, but I'm just saying though, he went on and we go, okay, great. I mean, that's kind of crazy. You know, we'll let, you know, we'll leave that alone.
Donald Trump's thing wasn't related to his physical. You know, you could just attribute that to what he knows, maybe his intelligence. That's always open for debate with Donald Trump. With Joe Biden, it's almost attributed to, is this dude really there? Like, is he really gonna make it? I mean, he does not have a commanding presence physically. Donald Trump, like you said, is always going to be a target, even when he's not there. He has a presence. Joe Biden is barely physically, you know, commanding anything when he's there.
Well, I disagree, but we'll let that be what it is because we are out of time. Professor, the studio has given the wrap signal. Closing comments for the day, things you want to leave our listeners to consider over the week.
Yeah. In case you didn't notice, I'm wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt.
Nobody can see what you're wearing, Professor.
Okay, you can't see what I'm wearing? Let me come up.
No, we can't see it.
You can't see it? Well, I'm going to tell you. It's every Black Life Matters. So if you go to everyblm.org, you'll see the real movement. I'm not backing the BLM. You know my issue with them. They are just wolves in sheep's clothing. But this organization, you'll see what it really does.
Outstanding. Well, listen, Professor, I would just give you a hard time. Yeah, we can see your shirt, and that is great that you're pointing that out. I think all of this stuff, whatever it is, wherever your oars in the water moves us forward. And that I just encourage everybody. I don't care how much you think people disagree with you or people are on or not on your side. Push for what you believe in, and hopefully it moves all of us forward towards that more perfect union. Want to thank DJ Anna back in the studio for a great job as always. I want to wish everybody a great, happy, and safe week. And we will see you back here again next week on In Touch News Radio, reality radio, where everybody can be a star. See you then. Bye-bye.